Well, it is now time for weather with Nebraska Extension Ag Climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Al Dutcher. Well, Al, we got a bit of precipitation this week, at least here on the eastern end of the state. How are things looking as we inch closer to planting?
Well, Bryce, we've seen some pretty wild weather there this last week. We were warm at the beginning, and then we turned colder as that low pressure system moved across the northern plains. Brought some very strong winds to a large portion of the central and northern plains. We had wind gusts reported, at least up from our mesonet sites, over 60 miles per hour in portions of western Nebraska. We got into yesterday in eastern Nebraska, we've seen wind gusts that were in excess of 45 miles per hour into the 50 mile per hour range. So very windy conditions as that intense low pressure system slowly worked its way across the Great Lakes. Now we are going to see a little bit of a warming trend as we go through this weekend and the early part of next week. But yeah, we have another decent system to move through the central Rockies, and that will probably bring our wind speeds up and give us at least a chance for some accumulating snowfall, particularly across the northwestern one-third of the state. So we go to the upper air models. The first thing I'll draw your attention to is that high pressure system or upper air ridge is building into the region. That's going to bring warm southerly flow up from the Gulf of Mexico, increase our humidity levels, but also increase our temperature. So we'll be looking at widespread 60s to low 70s across the southern part of the state. Low pressure up into south central South Dakota really has no moisture to pull into the system. So most of the moisture that we see on this map is associated with a trough that's coming in the Pacific Northwest that is expected to start to carve out a fairly broad trough across the western United States as we go into Sunday. Low pressure develops in the Texas Panhandle. That will start to at least bring some moisture up, and we may see some of that result in some scattered rain shower activity across the northwestern one-third of the state. By Monday, that trough really starts to move down the coast of West Coast, and we see a low pressure system developing over portions of eastern Nevada. Basically, most of the moisture will remain confined to the northern Rockies and to the west. We do see a little bit of precipitation to the southeast of us, but more importantly, on Tuesday, the system starts to really strengthen. And with that, with low pressure at the surface in southeastern Colorado, we should start to see some moisture moving to the north, and then eventually wrapping around and giving us some decent snowfall in the central Rockies, perhaps even farther south if this system digs a little bit deeper and is a little bit slower. By the time we get to Wednesday, that energy starts to eject out over eastern Nebraska. The first low pressure system moves up into Wisconsin, and a secondary low pressure system starts developing over northern portions of New Mexico. This will allow good moisture wrap around from the upper air low and some decent snowfall across the Dakotas. Once again, if this comes a little bit farther south, we'll see more of that accumulating snowfall across northwestern Nebraska. High pressure starts to build in on Thursday from the north, and that's going to bring that cooler air into our region. So the warm air will start to shift to our east. We'll see thunderstorm activity from Oklahoma all the way up through Missouri. And by the time we get to Friday, this upper air trough itself starts to move over into southeastern portions of Iowa. Low pressure at the surface over the Ohio River Valley means a broad area of pretty big significant precipitation, and on the backside of it, accumulating snowfall possible for eastern Kansas, Missouri, and southeastern portions of Iowa. A little bit farther northward, and all of a sudden we start to deal with some of that issues here in southeastern Nebraska. So pay attention to the updates. There's likely to be some changes. This does look like a significant storm system is going to develop. If we look even farther into the future, this is the 8 to 14 day forecast from next Thursday to the following Tuesday. And as that low pressure is out to the east, we get the cold air on the back side of it, so we're going to stay in below normal territory for pretty much most of the weekend to early next weekend. And in terms of precipitation, even though this has shown a drier trend, the models are starting to show some chances of another storm system developing as we get into later next weekend. So this may be overblown in terms of dryness. We'll just have to pay attention. This is the time of the year when a lot of things change rather rapidly, and storm systems can develop on a minute's notice almost to speak. So pay attention to these updates because we're most likely going to see some significant weather develop as we get into the next week.